Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Tuesday, the 19th of November, and I'm Derek Clark, of course, joined by Joshua Barry. How's it going, Joshua?
Good, good. Sorry we're late, but news dictates sometimes, Derek, doesn't it?
Yep, news breaking at 9:30, right on cue. If you are watching Rangers, then please, we are live every weekday morning at 9:30, as you all know. So if we were announcing big news, then please make it around about 9 o'clock in the future. But yeah, Nils Koppen has been appointed as Rangers' new technical director. He was the club's current head director of recruitment. He'll continue to oversee the club's transfer strategy and will now also take on overall responsibility for the club's academy, medical, football operations, performance and analysis departments. Now, on the club's website, folks, it reads manager Phil Clement and women's football managing director Donald Gillis will join Koppen in reporting to the new CEO upon their appointment, albeit both will work closely in tandem with Koppen on a daily basis. Since arriving at the beginning of the year, Koppen has led on the significant task of implementing a new recruitment model, with Rangers striving to build a new modern and sustainable structure for the football club. Koppen will remain on the club's executive management team alongside Chief Commercial Officer Karim Varani and Chief Financial Officer James Taylor. Koppen said on his appointment, "I am both honoured and delighted to take up the role of technical director here at Rangers. Winning is all that matters at this club, and it is my job to ensure that everything that supports our men's first team, from recruitment to the academy, medical performance, operations analysis, and everything in between, is at as high a level as possible. I look forward to the challenge ahead and to supporting the wider team as we work night and day to ensure the club is challenging for trophies on every front." John Gilligan added, "We are delighted to have appointed Nils to the role of technical director here at Rangers. Nils has impressed throughout the club with his leadership skills. He's built excellent relationships across both the football and non-football sides of the club, and his knowledge, experience, and his vision to drive improvement make him extremely well suited to lead the football department. We wish Nils every success in his new role." Joshua, what do you make of this?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to say, Derek, is it's something that we've spoken about a lot on this podcast and written a lot about, and has been a big topic of discussion overall. Rangers needed to change their executive structure. The football board that was formed, coincidentally, this time last year when Nils Koppen was appointed as the club's heads of recruitment, that was a 7-man board, and the idea being that you'd have a number of different department heads sitting under the CEO. I think the big overriding issue with that, though, was Rangers didn't have that kind of football executive person at the top of the club. And then we'll get into Koppen himself and that appointment and people's reaction to that. Obviously, now having been at the club for nearly a year, trying to and making a lot of change to Rangers' recruitment department. But I think the first thing to say is that Rangers needed this model. The fact that they, as a club and as a club of their size, did not have a sporting director, technical director type of model in place, I think was ridiculous in the first place. The reasons for doing that was that when, James Bisgrove and John Bennett, when they came into the club and when they assumed effective control of the club, or certainly on an operation basis, they wanted to change a lot. There was a lot of internal promotion then. And this football board, now, would it have worked long term? Maybe. We don't know. I think there were still oversights in it. And also, you only had 3 remaining people on it compared to 7 at this time last year. So I think the first thing to say is that Rangers needed some sort of technical director, sporting director, director of football, whatever you want to call it. Those phrases can mean different things, but effectively you have someone who's leading behind the scenes and trying to lead in one direction, have an overall vision. We've spoken a lot as well, Derek, about things like the academy, haven't we? How that lines up with transfer business, the fact that the manager, Philippe Clement, up until this point hasn't had that figure ahead of him apart from a chairman or a CEO. And you've got to question, well, who has the football knowledge in a structure like that to make the long-term decisions about a manager, to make the long-term decisions about the squad. So we'll get into the appointment and the decision that has led Rangers to promote Koppen from his role as Director of Football Recruitment. But I think first and foremost, it is long overdue that they have that they've eventually effectively replaced the sporting director it has been what has got Rangers into the mess that they're in just now, and certainly in my opinion, Derek, is that throughout a number of different years, a number of different situations, managers have had too much control, and then you get this situation where you go from manager to manager, idea to idea. It needs to be bigger than that. It needs to be at an executive level. It needs to have footballing vision and expertise, and we can get into that discussion. But certainly on the face of things, a big club needs a technical or sporting director, and it's long overdue that Rangers do have that.
Yeah, he's been promoted, of course. It's left many questioning the decision to appoint him in such an overarching role at the football club. William raises a point here why it takes so long to make the appointment when he was already at the club. James, with a different view, surely this should have waited until a new chairman was appointed. He's impressed John Gilligan, as we touched on there, Joshua. Of course, Rangers looking for a permanent chairman, and as that statement mentions, a permanent CEO as well. I can understand fans' reservations about Koppen and whether he will be able to perform this role, given that he's not got really any track record of doing so. Can you understand those sort of gripes, if you like?
Yeah, well, what I think you can understand with anything that Rangers do at the moment is that it will be met with a certain degree of, I don't know, what would you say, Derek, apprehension, given that you've had, Zeb Jacobs appointed as the academy director and wasn't there much longer. Obviously, Michael Beale didn't move from assistant manager to manager, but the idea of what kind of was the same. He came back. He was promoted from his previous role at the club in a previous time. James Bisgrove became the CEO. So there's been a pattern of this, you've got to say, not working. Why has it happened now? I mean, it's my understanding that Koppen has, in effect, been, his role has grown since he came to the club. He alluded to that in his interview with us, Derek, which was conducted last month. People can read that if they want to know a little bit more about his footballing ideas and what he's done to the recruitment department. But there's been so much change at Ibrox, and there's been so many people that have left the building that figures like Koppen have had to assume that responsibility. And it's my understanding that that idea of the football board is effectively being comprised of the acting chairman and CEO, John Gilligan and George Letham, alongside Philippe Clement and Nils Koppen. That there is, I guess, I don't know what you'd call it, not rumor, because a rumor sounds like we're in school talking, but there's been a narrative, should we say, formed that Koppen was only a scout at PSV and he's been given a massive promotion in the first place at Rangers. That's not true. He was a very senior scout. He worked right below that, effectively assisting the sporting director towards the end of his time here, and then the natural next step was to become a head of a department in that career progression, if you like, which was afforded to him in that football board role. Where I think reservation does come into it is the fact that by taking him away, in effect, from recruitment and increasing his role, can he conduct that as efficiently, as successfully as he'd hoped to long term? Now we can get into the summer business, Derek. I think there's been a lot of good stuff done. I think there's questions over certain players. You've got to remember Rangers' wage bill has come down significantly as well. But Koppen was and has been a head of recruitment who's actually been very active. He's still been going to games. He's still been flying off to different parts to watch players. And he's spoken about that again, the fact that if you're going to make decisions as a sporting director, head of football recruitment, if you're going to make decisions about players on the park, you need to be right at the top of the developments that are happening on the park, and you need to really know those players. So I think the question will be, how does his role now morph with that in mind? Have Rangers solved one issue by pointing him here, but created another by taking him away from that, I guess, specialised role that they had in the first place? The noises from inside the club is that this is a decision that has been greeted well. There's a desire for that type of leadership, I think, internally, and a recognition that you need someone to pull together all those different departments. But I think you're right to flag up the fact that this culture of internal promotion has existed under previous chairman, obviously John Gilligan, on an interim basis. And that is going to be the question for Koppen and the club as well. Does the solving of one problem create another, or will he be able to tie together all departments, as Rangers really need? Because the football and vision for the last few years, Derek, has been so sporadic, and people might think, well, why does that matter? It really does. You look at the squad building, you look at the academy promotion, all these different factors come into, I think, the fact that Rangers' vision has been set by different managers as opposed to a figure behind the scenes that's going to be there long-term working with the manager. That's why clubs have technical directors and sporting directors, and it is why it's been so surprising, to put it diplomatically, that Rangers have not copied that model in recent years.
Yeah, it's fair to say that reaction, certainly on social media, isn't exactly enthused by this appointment, and I can understand why. Interestingly, he gave an interview to Rangers TV, Nils Koppen. Chris is busy writing that up. That will be on the website shortly, folks, every word from that. But I noticed he did say a number of interesting things. Touching on the academy, Joshua, he will be in charge of that now, as you touched on, Zeb Jacobs having departed several months ago. He said one key thing for me is there's some big appointments they have to make in the academy, and he's exploring introducing ex-players for that sort of DNA and to help those young lads coming through, which I think is a really good thing. I think there should be more. He touched on their football knowledge. There should be more. There's a great number of ex-Rangers players that would be willing to help the club at this moment in time, and that is certainly something I would like to see happen.
Yeah, it can become a bit of a cliche, I think, in Scottish football that you need. It's always a discussion when a manager comes in, whether it be Clement or Van Bronckhorst, that you need a coach who knows the league. And while I think that can be slightly overblown, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. In that, if you look at a lot of European clubs, whether it be in Dutch football, where Koppen has obviously worked previously, they have a lot of ex-players, or even somewhere like Arsenal at the moment springs to mind as well with Per Mertesacker. They have a lot of ex-players involved in the running of the club. Now, you probably don't want every single ex-player involved in the running of a club, but you do need, I agree, I think that's important behind the scenes to have that, an overall team of people who maybe don't have previous experience of Rangers but have expertise elsewhere, and those who do. Because on the topic of the academy, we spoke in the last couple of months, didn't we, about Leon King and Alex Lowry and why the pathway has effectively failed them. The B team setup is far from ideal. If you look at the type of games that the B team are playing, something we're going to talk about, and we've got a piece coming on it at some point in the near future, Derek, with all the discussion of the moment about Lennon Miller and how exciting he is. It's easy to forget that Rangers signed Bailey Rice a couple of years ago, who was regarded as exciting, if not perhaps even slightly more, when they were in the same age range. A player when he joined Rangers, his last appearance for the first team, I think to my memory, was over a year ago. Or maybe it wasn't over a year ago. That was when he signed his contract and he came on against Real Betis in the Europa League, and since then his pathway is it's just not existed into the first team, even though Rangers are playing a number 6. That comes into the overall style that Rangers play between different managers. It comes into the fact that you need someone aside from the manager to have some sort of jurisdiction to think long term instead of thinking short term. That's the main topic that comes up when people in football talk about a sporting director. A manager needs to think long term. Needs to think long term, but he's mainly thinking short term. How do I get results? How do I get through this period? How do I buy time for the long term? The sporting director's role, technical director, call it what you want, is to pull in the opposite direction. Because the academy, Rangers have had players good enough to break in, but to break into a first team, you need consistency, you need the right environment, you need consistency between different managers, different styles. That's not existed at all. And the example I always go back to, Derek, is Leon King between two different managers. It played the most minutes of any young player in the Champions League. Rangers let go of Leon Balogun to create a pathway for him. The next summer, they re-signed Leon Balogun a year older, and that's not a slight on Balogun, who's probably been Rangers' most consistent centre-back over the last year. But you take my point, how can youth development work when that is a decision being made at the top? And that was a decision that was made, obviously, when Rangers did not have a sporting director in place. That is, I think that's pretty descriptive of where it's went wrong in terms of a youth academy pathway to the first team for Rangers in the last few years.
Yeah, just a snippet of what he said. Koppen on the Youth Academy says, we're facing a challenge with the B team where there's not an ideal platform, so it's on us to get the best challenges and opportunities for the boys in our club. What we want is to decrease the age to make a step to the first team and make their breakthrough. We want to do that by strategic partnerships with other clubs by changing our own philosophy, by bringing the players on a younger age, expose them to the first team training environment and give them the opportunity to show themselves and make the right steps at the right moments. I think that we also don't have to forget is that we're a Scottish club. We have to educate players not only for our first team, but also in general for the Scottish games, something that we have to pay more attention on. That is the output also, if they cannot make it up here as a pro, that they will be able to be a professional football player in the Scottish highest level, and we really need to improve that. Number of suggestions for ex-players to come in. A lot of suggestions for Barry Ferguson, as Chris and many others say. Neil says Kevin Thompson and Stephen Davis. There's many ex-pros out there that, as I touched on, would I'm sure would be willing to help with regards to the academy. Interestingly as well, he was quizzed on his immediate priorities in his new role. Koppen, he says, it's about continuing the work towards the January window, what's quite an important one for the first team. It's about ensuring the stability in the football department, and I think it's a very important one, making key decisions within the academy to get the right structure in place. As I mentioned before, this is a very unique place, so by bringing people back with the Rangers background, we know what it's about. I think it's a quite crucial one moving forward. So that is what he had to say on that. You can read every word he had to say over on the website, folks, but the proof will be in the pudding, of course. It is a promotion. It's not a role that he's had before. There's a lot of responsibility, and the jury very much out. When you sat down with him, Joshua, was it a month or so ago? Did he strike you as someone that is the man to lead Rangers forward in what has been very choppy seas of late?
Yeah, well, choppy seas is I think the right way of putting it, and it's not a job he comes into with necessarily a lot of stability. Now, I think that if you look at the summer recruitment, Derek, and we'll maybe talk about this a little bit before the podcast ends. We've got another piece on the website today that focuses on, it feels like a year ago now, and it was only yesterday that I wrote it, but focuses on Philippe Clement and trying to decipher a little bit his football ideas, what he believes in, why, speaking to people who have worked with him to hopefully give some context to the product. It's been a big talking point, hasn't it? Rangers' style of play and is it going to work and what is it? I think as a sporting director, you're probably always you're going to be judged on the product on the pitch, right? That's because, especially at a club like Rangers, that is just the fact of the matter. And we've already spoke about the fact that you need leadership off it. You need a footballing figure who sets the vision between managers. I think that's the big thing that's been missing at Derek, and it leads to the reaction that you see from people, because has been, I think the word you'd use over the last few years is chaotic, pivoting from vision to vision, from football style to football style. What Koppen has started to do from a recruitment point of view is completely change the department. Rangers' wage bills come down by several £1 million, which is an important thing. The average age of the squad has come down, even if actually the average age of the starting 11, interestingly, hasn't come down that much compared to last year. But the idea being, from a recruitment point of view, that even if the manager changes, that vision shouldn't change that much. That was very different a couple of years ago when you really had a manager in the summer and Michael Beale leading, and the good players still arrived in that summer window. But you had a manager leading on recruitment. And there's a reason that just most clubs in the world do not do that, because managers' lifespans are pretty short term. Football clubs have got to exist outside of that. Football clubs have got to have a vision beyond that. So I think the task for Koppen will be, can he continue to improve the recruitment department? Because again, internally, very much acknowledge that that's the start of something as opposed to the end, the culmination of a squad. I think if they can sign more players like Chefty and Connor Barron, who are young, who come in for relatively low fees, who can hit the ground running just now, and then they'll make more recruitment successes than they do misses. And there's always going to be misses in recruitment, but given Rangers squad building over the last few years, there's understandably a bit more pressure on that. So there's no doubt that is a big job, as you say, that the step for Koppen from his role at PSV to director of football recruitment was natural. And this is a big step to pulling together a lot of different departments, pulling together all departments and being in control of them all. it's very true that Rangers needed someone in that role. I think he's the transfer dealings are going to continue to be very closely scrutinised. But what I think you'll see in the comments, what people will care about, Derek, is the long-term safeguard and the long-term vision that just has not been there, and that's going to be Koppen's task to try and set that and to try and communicate that. And obviously the product that is on the pitch and the pressure on Philippe Clement all ties into that conversation as well.
Yeah. There's another suggestion for ex-players coming in. CJ NI says, need Big Duncan for a director for motivation. I would not be against that, I've got to say. Love Big Duncan Ferguson, and it's very unfortunate what happened up in the Highlands at Inverness, but someone like that would be magic. There's others, of course. We spoke to Mark Hateley recently as well. I think guys like that, of that ilk, I think would be brilliant for the young lads coming through the academy. But it remains to be seen if Nils Koppen will be a success in that role. Moving on, other news. This is other news, and quite concerning news. Joshua, last night, John Allen with a point. Derek, is it true about Kasanwirjo? He was playing. He was on the bench for the Netherlands under-21s in their match against England, I think it was. Came off the bench and looked like he'd done. He went to sort of put his leg out for the ball and he fell to the ground. Looks like he may have encountered, by the looks of things, by going by the footage that I witnessed, a knee injury. He was visibly shaken at the time, went straight down the tunnel to receive treatment. Let's just hope it's nothing serious, Joshua. Looking at it, it looks bad. I'm not going to lie. And given Rangers' history with injuries, I'm expecting the worst.
Yeah, it didn't look great. We're still trying to ascertain exactly what the news is. Obviously, with these, especially with knee injuries, it tends to be you need to allow the swelling to go down a little bit before materializes exactly what the injury is. But like everyone else, you look at that clip and it doesn't fill you with confidence. He's someone that I think has really kind of been coming onto a game at Rangers, hasn't he? There's been this discussion of where does he play. He's always looked really calm when he's played, regardless of the position, regardless of the fact that he's been put into different positions. Maybe wasn't great at left back at points up at Aberdeen, but wasn't alone on that night, and maybe not performing at his best. But yeah, I'm sure Koppen and Clement and others will be crossing their fingers, especially going into this stretch of December, Derek. Because I think if you were to ask me just now, if you were to say what team should Rangers start in the League Cup final, presuming that they're all fit, presuming they've got a bit of a run of games between now and then, I'd be inclined to have a back four of probably at the moment Sterling, Suter, who I thought his ball for Scotland's goal last night was incredible, and he's been really good for the national team. Kasanwirjo and Chefty at left back. That's probably the back four I would go for. I think that in Old Firm games, Rangers haven't been able to forget the technical aspect of the game and the tactical aspect, and the fact that Celtic have spent more money on players. I don't think Rangers have been able to compete with them in terms of the legs that they have across the front, especially the front six of the pitch and Rangers back six of the pitch. So still trying to ascertain exactly the severity of that, and if we do get any news, we'll let people know. But yeah, it would be if it was a bad injury, it would be a huge blow. Just got to wait and see what the actual outcome is.
Yeah, if it's a knee injury like that, then we may not see him again this season. I've seen many players getting injured like that, and we're touched with that. It's just more precautionary than anything else, but the optics don't look good. Fingers crossed for Narisho with regards to that. You touched on John Suter. I never watched Scotland last night, but I did see that cross. James with the point says, what a cross for Scotland last night. You need to get John getting these crosses in for Rangers. Who knew he had that in his locker, Joshua?
Well, to be fair, he's more of a ball carrier than long passer, but I do think I think Suter has been really good. Well, is really good fair? And I think it is fair, actually. Maybe not really good because Rangers are 9 points behind. In context, I think he's been pretty good. I'll rephrase.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, he's been consistent. I mean, the thing with Suter, you've got to remember, Rangers have got a lot of things wrong from a recruitment point of view in the last few years. But if you told people that Suter would play as regularly as he is now when he joined, I don't think I'd have believed you. So it has been a really good signing, and he's 28 years old, coming into his peak. It seems to be in a really good place. I mean, it was a fantastic ball and great win for Scotland. Great header at the back post as well. But that was probably the best cross he'll play in his entire career.
Let's hope not. I'm really hoping there's more in a blue jersey, in a light blue jersey than the one in dark blue. But yeah, good to see he's getting his chance for the national team now. He's bided his time for a while, so getting opportunities on the international stage, and certainly by all accounts did very well last night and also at the weekend as well. Another player who did well, Joshua, is Yanis Hagi, a man of the match performance no less for Romania, as he thumped Cyprus by 4-1, claimed an assist as well. Big clamour now, surely, for him to get more game time. I thought we would have seen, I know he was suspended for a couple of games domestically after that sending off when he made his return against St Johnstone, wasn't it? But I was hoping to see more of him. Surely we see him at the weekend.
Who have they got? Dundee United at home? Maybe. Yeah, I don't think. I think the clamour existed before last night. I didn't watch that game, but with Hagi, Derek, I feel like it's kind of it's common sense fair that he's got limitations to his game, but everyone in the Rangers squad does, because they wouldn't be at Rangers otherwise. And I think the argument is, well, use him for. If you've got to use him, and you've got to use him in periods. He's not going to fix the whole situation, but he's definitely not going to make it worse. He probably helps in little ways. I definitely think if you're Yanis Hagi sitting there on the bench against Hearts, you're probably pretty frustrated that you've not come on to the pitch. So it won't do him any harm at all last night. I didn't know he'd got the man of the match performance, but I did see a couple of clips on Twitter this morning. So yeah, we've discussed it over the international break, have we? I mean, I don't think he'd be someone who necessarily, now he might be, but if you were to ask me now I don't think he starts every single game in December. But should he have a part to play? Does his quality supersede others in that squad in those attacking areas? Yes. That it just feels like a common sense argument that he should play a little bit more football to me, Derek.
I'd be tempted to start him, I've got to admit. Coming off the back of doing ever so well for your country, you'll be buzzing surely from that.
I think the argument is.
I don't think that.
Yeah, I think the argument, or what's a fair argument, is that if you look at that midfield three, and we discussed it just before the break, especially in games at home at Ibrox, you don't need Diomande, Barron, and Raskin. I don't think that gives you enough goal threat. That's why Tom Lawrence has played. For me, Hagi maybe isn't as much of a goal threat as Tom Lawrence, but I'd rather have him in that number 10 position because he brings others into play. It's going to be interesting to see what starting 11 Clement goes with. Obviously, they've got Nice away on the Thursday and then St Johnstone away on the Sunday after that, isn't it? The following week. But
he won't be in France, so
yeah. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, I guess we've seen Barami and Hagi play those kind of two roles a little bit. In a game against Dundee United at home, you'd like to think that Rangers do spend a lot of time in the opposition's half, and therefore they maybe have Chefty as the kind of high and wide option on the left, which allows Barami and Hagi to move in field. So, yes, I don't mind your theory there.
Yeah. Other bits of news you may have seen yesterday, of course, is the Belgian boss, Domenico Tedesco. Remember him, formerly of RB Leipzig. He's under a bit of pressure, it's fair to say, at Belgium. Because they lost to Israel at the weekend 1-0. They've only won 1 out of 6 matches in the Nations League. He's under serious pressure. Belgium have appointed Philippe Clement's former chief executive at Club Brugge, Vincent Manert, hopefully that's how you pronounce it, as the nation's new sports director. It's led to mummerings over in Belgium that they may look towards Philippe Clement. Now, Scott McKenzie has done some of our work for us. He says, according to the Het Nieuwsblad, which is a Belgian newspaper, the Belgian FA are a little skint and they're worried about how much it will cost to fire Tedesco, whose contract goes up to the World Cup in, of course, Canada, America and Mexico. But this was gathering a bit of pace yesterday, Joshua, about the possibility of Belgium calling for Philippe Clement. I can understand why. He's well thought of in his homeland. He's a bit of a hero over there, not only for his playing career with Belgium, but also with his managerial career. Of course, he won 2 league titles with Genk and Club Brugge. What do you make of this? Do you think that could be something that may materialise? Of course, Tedesco at this moment in time looks like a dead man walking.
Yeah, well, I think the link obviously at this moment in time is dependent on that relationship you mentioned between the sporting director and Clement. Clement still viewed very highly in Belgium. You look at, I was writing this in the piece yesterday, Derek, that he's actually unbeaten in all his European games away from home. And I don't think the question with Clement's football is for example, Rangers compete in European football. Feels like the nuances of Scottish football and the fact that Rangers need to break teams down consistently and really control games that is getting away from them. If you look at the product on the park at the moment, we've got that just to plug it. As I say, it'll get lost in translation this morning because of the Koppen news, but we've got a piece that speaks to some people who've worked with Clement in the past that tries to answer this question of what is his philosophy, what are his ideas, verticality, what does it mean when he speaks about that? And the most interesting thing in the piece to me, Derek, was the fact that speaking to someone who suggested to me that Clement will change formation at points, and actually when he was at Club Brugge, they had two different systems. So that's been a big criticism of his football at points over Rangers. Why is he always putting square pegs in round holes? Wingers last season, Kieran Dowell and Tom Lawrence as deep line midfielders. You could extend that to this season as well. Why doesn't he just change something? And he spoke about that recently at a press conference, basically saying that you don't have the time to do that mid-season. He did do that at Club Brugge, but he did it after a year when he'd had the same players there. He'd had a bit of consistency. He'd had foundations by which to build upon. Whereas this summer, because 16 players left to build, and he's kind of had to go back to the start. So I thought that was an interesting detail, the fact that he has in the past had that before. And I think a lot of people would like to see Rangers, for example, have the option of maybe playing with a back three or changing things up when they're struggling somewhat. But at the moment, as I say, because it's mid-season, because he's not had that long with this group of players overall, maybe that's not the case. So there's a lot more in there about his ideas, maybe what he's trying to do at Rangers, how that feeds into their tactical approach, and obviously that gives a little bit of context as well as to maybe how he's viewed in Belgium, where he has been really successful. But there's no doubt, Derek, over the course of the next month, there's huge pressure, not only on results, there's huge pressure on performances as well, because Rangers are now going to play every 3 days for what feels like eternity. But it's definitely up until March, and you've got to say that after I think it was 18 of Clement's first 20 games in the league he won, it's 11 and 20 since then. So, big pressure on results and performances coming up.
The League Cup final is looming large. That is monumental for me and Philippe Clement in his Rangers tenure. He has to get, first of all, the monkey off his back of winning that first Old Firm match. He has to win that game. There's a few comments coming in on that as well. So, 15th of December, that one. But there is a number of matches in between that he has to get. Like you say, Joshua, not only results, but we need performances as well. Of course, Gladiator 2 is out. I've heard it's an absolute car crash of a movie, but the famous line, "Are you not entertained?" Well, Rangers.
I wondered where you were going with that. I thought I was.
We're not being entertained at this moment in time. So I really hope when the players come back after their international break, and a lot of them will be heading back now that starting on Saturday, that we do get some sort of entertainment on show at Ibrox. Right, that'll do us there anyway for today. A lot of news to digest. A big thank you to you all for tuning in. Thank you to Joshua as ever. Go and check out his piece, incidentally, on Philippe Clement. It's on the website this morning. I'll also put the link in the video below this as well. Right, we'll speak to you tomorrow morning, folks. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Bye for now.